Ladies and gentlemen, first, we're honored tonight to have New York's finest and one of America's top cops, the New York Police Commissioner James O'Neill. James O'Neill was appointed the 43rd Police Commissioner of the City of New York by Mayor Bill de Blasio in September 2016. He had served previously as Chief of Department in NYPD's highest uniform rank. He was instrumental in developing the neighborhood-based policing model that is renewing and recasting the NYPD's patrol function to provide greater police and community interaction and collaboration. Widely experienced in both the patrol and the investigative sides of the department, Commissioner O'Neill is a hands-on police practitioner and a dedicated police reformer. He speaks with urgency about the need for police to evolve if they are to succeed in connecting with communities and keeping people safe in the 21st century. Police Commissioner O'Neill began his law enforcement career in 1983 with the Transit Police, which was then an independent police department. He credits his time on patrol on the trains and platforms of the subway system with helping him learn how to interact and communicate with a wide range of people, a skill he regards as essential to successful police work. He had risen to lieutenant by the time of 1995 merger of the Transit Police with the NYPD. As a lieutenant in the NYPD, he worked at the Police Academy and the Warrant Squad before promoting to captain and a post as the executive officer in the 52nd Precinct in Northern Bronx. He served as the commanding officer of 3 successful precincts: Central Park, the 25th Precinct in East Harlem, and the 44th Precinct in Western Bronx. He was CO of the 25th Precinct when the September 11th attack occurred, and remembers being so proud of the way his fellow officers from all across the department came together to help and protect people during the crisis. It was as CO of the 44th Precinct, one of the busiest commands in the city, that Commissioner O'Neill began to think seriously about reforming the NYPD patrol model. The precinct workload in the NYPD had long been divided between patrol officers who answered a steady stream of calls for service and specialty officers who worked at correcting conditions and community outreach. As Commissioner O'Neill saw it, police departments had been asking their patrol officers to connect with the community members for generations without ever giving them the time or the opportunity to do so. He envisioned a model with fewer specialists and more generalist officers who answered calls, worked at problem solving and local crime fighting, and collaborated far more effectively with community members. Promoting to inspector and then to deputy chief, Commissioner O'Neill moved to the investigative side of the department, serving tours as commanding officer of the Vice Division, the Narcotics Division, and the Fugitive Enforcement Division. He worked in all 3 capacities to keep cases focused on reducing crime and supporting the priorities of precinct commanders. In March of 2014, he was appointed commanding officer of the Police Commissioner William Bratton's office and played a key role in the department's re-engineering process, concentrating on operational reforms. As Chief of Patrol from June 14, he began the development of the Neighborhood Coordination Officer Plan, anchoring officers and sectors, inviting them with off-radio time to connect with the community members and work at local problem solving and crime fighting. Appointed chief of the department in December 2014, he was almost immediately confronted with a widespread protest related to the death of Eric Gardner during an arrest the prior June. The NYPD's handling of these protests was deemed a model of restraint and professionalism by observers in the city and all across the country. Also, early in his term, he helped lead the department through the shock and mourning that followed the assassinations of Detectives Raphael Ramon and Weijun Liu. The neighborhood-based policing model, which is a crime-fighting plan above all else, will be in place in half of New York City precincts and all of the NYPD Housing Bureau Police Service areas by this coming October, serving more than 3 million New Yorkers. It is the largest, best-funded, best-staffed community policing initiative ever undertaken in the United States. Commissioner O'Neill reforms are taking hold, and we have a far-reaching and positive influence all across New York City. Commissioner O'Neill grew up in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn and was one of 7 children. He has 2 sons himself, Daniel and Christopher. He is an avid hockey player and a motorcyclist. Commissioner O'Neill has a clear vision of where he is taking the New York City Police Department. Fighting crime is what we get paid to do, he says, but we can't do that unless we achieve full partnership with the community. Unless we have that connectivity, it's not going to work. Sounds familiar to the retail industry. With that, I'd like to welcome Commissioner O'Neill. Thanks, sorry about holding it.
Well, after all that, I got nothing to say. You stole everything from me. That's an honor. It's a true honor to be standing up here as the 43rd Police Commissioner of this great city. And I'm happy to be here on the day we celebrate the life and legacy of Martin Luther King, too. So it's a pleasure to be here. If you're from New York, good to see you. If you're not from New York, don't be jealous. But welcome to New York City. I've been in this business a very long time, and never in my wildest imagination did I think I'd be standing anywhere as the 43rd Police Commissioner. I started with very humble roots. I was a transit cop, came on the transit police back in 1983. When we first got out of the academy, we had to do something that was called train patrol. So you rode the train. I rode the train from 168th and Broadway, and if you're not from New York, I'll tell you how far this is, to J Street in Brooklyn. You did about 3 round trips a night, and probably took, each time you took a trip, it was probably at least an hour. And that was the way I think that I really came to appreciate the people of this great city. As a young rookie cop, riding those trains from 8 at night to 4 in the morning, you got to see what New York City was all about. And it's just a city where people just want the same thing that I've always wanted, to live in peace, to do what's good for your family, and to work hard and attain some level of happiness. So I think that was a good way to start my career. And all the 3 police departments merged in 1995. I had the opportunity before the merger to work for Commissioner Bill Bratton. I think everybody met him last year if you were here. A tremendous human being, a tremendous police leader, and a lot of what he put in place way back in 1994 is why the city's in such good shape today. Just a little bit about what's going on in New York City today. 2016 was an absolute banner year for us. Homicides were down, shootings were down, overall crime is down. And overall crime is that those 7 major crimes: murder, rape, robbery, burglary, grand larceny, felony assault, and grand larceny auto. And grand larceny is probably mostly what this industry is concerned about. It's still, to this day, it's about 43% of our crime, so it's a big concern for us also. But just to get a sense of appreciation for where we are, way back in 1992, there were 2,245 homicides in New York City. Last year, we had 335. Back in 1992, there were 5,000 shootings. Last year, we had under 1,000. We had 998. And none of that happens by accident. That happens as a direct result of the hard work of the men and women of the New York City Police Department and all of our partners, private industry and in the public sector also. We have a fantastic relationship. I don't know if anybody here has worked for the FBI. We have a great relationship with the FBI right now. It hasn't always been the case. With the ATF and the U.S. Marshal Service and the DEA. I'm going to talk a little bit about the FBI. My first day on the job, my first full day, in September 17th, is when we had the bombing in Chelsea. And I was actually driving. I was driving somewhere. I was at work all day. I had to move everything from the 13th floor up to the 14th floor. I thought I was the police commissioner. Maybe somebody would give me a hand with that, but kind of had to do it by myself. But that's okay. I'm a humble guy. I worked all day, and I was driving out to see a friend. I got a phone call from one of my sergeants that there was an explosion on 23rd Street, and it first came over that a bus exploded. So, it shook me for a little bit, but then I composed myself, and been a cop for 33 and a half years at the time, and I knew that this would come to a positive conclusion. As I was driving in, got an update on the injuries, and thank God they weren't too bad. There were about 30 people injured. And when I got to the scene, Bill Sweeney was there, people from ATF were there, and we put our heads together, and we managed to, within 35 hours, identify someone. And within 50 hours, we were able to apprehend someone out in New Jersey. And again, that's not something that happens by accident. It happens because we work together. We made a decision during the course of that initial investigation that the way we were going to do this is we were not going to go over the whole crime scene. We weren't going to process the whole crime scene and then start sending the evidence out. What we did was we sectioned it off, and we did the crime scene. And as we got done with the section, we had all that evidence brought down to Quantico. And within 35 hours, we were able to identify this guy and able to apprehend him. So it's things like that that make us, that gives us the ability to keep this city safe. And I think one of the most frustrating things that I have about this job is the failure to recognize change. And over the last 3 years, working with Commissioner Bratton, and I got this job in September, so I've been here for 4 months. Somehow it seems like about 4 or 5 years, but it's only 4 months. We've been able to put together a program called neighborhood policing. And I know that we have to evolve. I've known that since I was the CEO of the 4-4 back in 2004. So what we did was, this is a wholesale change, and it's, again, you're not probably going to hear too much about this because it's a positive change, and it's really given us a connection to the people we're sworn to protect and serve. If you worked in a precinct prior to this model of policing, half the precinct would be responding to 911 jobs. And that's a big load in and of itself. And I think 911 has actually changed. It didn't actually. It without a doubt, changed the face of policing back in the 70s. We became a reactive agency instead of a proactive agency. So if I worked in a precinct, say my old precinct up in the Bronx, on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, you'd have one sector car that could be responding to 20 to 25 jobs. That's just one car. And where in that model of policing does anybody have the time to make any connection to anyone except the people calling 911? And the other half of the precinct would be doing some sort of summary work, maybe anti-crime work, maybe low-level drug work, domestic violence, traffic, or some sort of administrative work. And I know since I've been on the job, people are telling me that you have to have that connection to the community. But if you took a step back and realized there was nowhere in that model of policing that you have the opportunity to do that. So what we did was we did a pilot project in the Rockways up in Upper Manhattan, and we added more police officers. That's the big thing about this, is that it takes additional police officers to do this. And we resected each one of these precincts into natural neighborhoods, and we decided we're going to put the same cops into the same sectors every day on the same tour. Give them an opportunity to make that connection to the people that they're sworn to protect and serve. And we also we created another position called the Neighborhood Coordination Officer. And in each one of those sectors, there's 2 NCOs, and their job is to have that connection between the community and the sector cops. And we also, by resectoring, in my old precinct, we had 18 arbitrarily drawn sectors. So we went down to 5. So that means it's the same cops in each one of those 5 sectors. A lot of people in the 4-4, there's 150,000. 5 sectors, that's 30,000 people. You're not going to meet everybody, obviously, but at least you get the connection, the chance to have a connection with the people of this city. And by and large, the people of this city are great because we're not doing any of this by ourselves. These numbers are down so low. The homicides, shootings, and the overall crime is down so low because of the connection we have to the people in this great city. Make no mistake about it. So as we move forward, we're up and running in 35 of the 77 precincts and all of our housing PSAs. And so there's another thing that came out of this that's really just as critical. It's part and parcel to neighborhood policing. We took a look at who's actually involved in the violence and the crime. And I'm sure that's something that you do too. And it's a very small percentage of the population. We have a list that we maintain of people that have been shot or shot someone, and believe it or not, it's a couple of thousand people that have done both or have been shot multiple times. So what we do is concentrate most of our resources on that percentage of the population, that small percentage of the population. We also concentrate them on gangs and crews. In 2016, we had 90 gang and crew takedowns, resulting in the incarceration of over 1,000 people. Are we okay? We're good? Yeah, we're good? Okay. Resulting in the arrest of over 1,000 people. And those 1,000 people were bad people. And that's another thing I think I find a little bit frustrating, is the failure to recognize that there are still some really bad people in this world. And these are the people that we concentrated our resources on, Most of them are still either in jail or awaiting trial. And we don't, again, it's not something we do by ourselves. We do in conjunction with the federal agencies I spoke about, and also in conjunction with the district attorney's offices, all 5 local DAs and the U.S. attorneys, the Eastern District and the Southern District, along with our special narcotics court. So we know this is not something that we do by ourselves. And we talk about this every Thursday morning. I don't know if everybody's heard about the infamous CompStat meetings. If you're from New York, you've probably heard about it, but this is one of the primary reasons why we're doing as well as we do. Every Thursday morning, we bring in a patrol bureau that's either up in crime or up in violence, and we bring the precinct commanders down, and it's quite a show. They stand at a podium, not dissimilar to this, with their narcotic captains, their detective bureau personnel, and they have to give us a picture of what's going on and what they're doing to make things better. I've been going to CompStat since 1996, and to think that in 1 year we could have a reduction of over 140 shootings is truly an amazing accomplishment. So, you know, we have neighborhood policing, we have precision policing, we have CompStat, and we have to pay attention to what's going on all around the world, not just what's going on in New York City. If you went down to the New Year's Eve celebration, you see that we adapted to the intel that's out there, and we have to scrub that intel each and every day. We do that with the FBI, we do that with the Joint Terrorist Task Force, and if you came down to Times Square on New Year's Eve, you could see that we wrapped the whole bow tie area in sanitation trucks and sand trucks. You know, it's kind of a sad commentary on the state of the world, but it's something that needs to be done, and we started doing that actually during the Thanksgiving Day parade. And to think that during the Thanksgiving Day parade you'd have to do that and have people assigned out there with long guns. We've created 2 new divisions over the last couple of years too in response to what's going on around the world. We created the Strategic Response Group. We had borough task forces all around the city in each patrol borough. We combined them, put them all together. So now we have a cadre of 700 highly trained people that can respond to either an active shooter or, God forbid, a terrorist event. We also have the critical response commands, and I think if you're the CRC, if you live or work in New York City, you've probably seen the cars, you've probably seen the cops standing out in front of iconic and sensitive locations. Unfortunately, they have to be out there with long guns in case anything does happen. We have the ability to respond. So we're doing a great job as far as investigations with Joint Terrorist Task Force. Our ability to prevent is also good with CRC, and our ability to respond, not just in Manhattan, but in all 5 boroughs, I think is really been increased over the last couple of years. It used to be that ESU was the only people that had access to long guns. Now, it was probably at tops maybe 40 or 50 people with access to long guns at any one time. Now it's up over 200. So if you do work in New York City, just make sure that you reach out to your local precincts, and maybe if you have CRC working in front of the building, you have a connection with them, and you know who's out there. And it's usually the same cops every day, because we're trying to make sure that model's similar to the neighborhood policing model, because who knows what's going on better than the people that live and work in the location. So we've done a lot of changes. We're keeping up with the times, and I think as far as the Metro Organized Retail Crime Alliance, Tariq, did you come up with that acronym? Metroca? Come on, you couldn't do better than that? Is that the best you could do? It's good, but it's to the point. Tariq Shepard is a lieutenant that works in the Deputy Commissioner of Public Information's office. He used to have a real job, right? When did you work up in Central Harlem, right? I used to have a real job too. But Tariq is the driving force behind this. We launched this back in September 2014. We now have over 180 law enforcement agencies represented and members from more than 200 retailers. I think that's how we're going to make things better. That's how we're going to push that crime down. The level of cooperation is necessary. We're going to make a difference. And you know, it's as a precinct commander, you get kind of territorial, that you think only the bad guys are going to operate within your precincts, and nothing could be further from the truth. They spread out across the boroughs, they spread out across the city, and they spread out across the states too. So that's why I think it's so important to have this organization help us with identity theft and credit card fraud rings. We have seen an evolution within gangs and crews. It used to be that a gang or crew would be involved in maybe doing robberies, maybe in the narcotics trade. But it seems in each and every takedown we have, and again, we had 90 of them last year, there's some level of involvement with credit card fraud or identity theft. You know, everybody we lock up seems to have 10, 20, or 30 credit cards, or maybe actually a credit card machine. So it's important for us to make sure that we stay in touch with you, and we keep up with that level of sophistication, which is kind of hard to believe. But you know, if we're going to evolve, I guess they evolve too. We have that ability to respond to that active shooter, as I said, and it's important that you maintain some sort of relationship with the local precincts. That's how we're going to make this better. And one thing I think that's really helped us tremendously is the development of the Grand Larceny Division under Chief Joe Dowling. We found that within the local precincts, they were doing a decent job, but we figured if we centralized it and made it sort of a specialty, now we have 200 investigators assigned to the Grand Larceny Division. And again, they're doing identity theft, they're doing credit card fraud, and they are doing actually a lot of gang and crew cases for us too. And they're actually lucky enough they get to come down to CompStat every Thursday morning too and participate in that forum. So, you know, I'm gonna wrap it up in a little bit, but I'm so lucky to have this job. I couldn't be prouder of the men and women of the New York City Police Department. I'm working on my 35th year. I get to see what they do every day, and really, it's not each and every one of the 36,000 cops deserve to be cops. I understand that. But by and large, they all took this job to make a difference. They all took this job to do good, and they certainly do. So thank you for inviting me here tonight. It's a real pleasure. And if you're not from New York, enjoy your time here. And if you are from New York, enjoy living in a really safe city. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.